Hi again, YouTube. Big Apple here. There's a lot of misinformation out there about ammo and a bunch of news sources about, oh, the magazines can fit this many bullets in it. Okay, well, I'm going to clear up everything about it. First of all, my title's sarcasm. I hope you guys have a sense of humor, because I kind of do. Anyway, I'll go ahead and tell you what this is. This is called a round or a cartridge. When Joe Biden was talking about it in his gun control thing, in his gun control speech, I guess you could call this a shell, but the shell usually refers to the case right here. The case is what contains the powder, and it holds on to the bullet. The bullet is just this part. This is the only part that flies out. And then that's called the primer, or the cap is what they used to call it when they were muzzle loaders, but it's pretty much just the primer now. All right, so to get right to it, I said I won't be discussing shotguns in this video. Shot shells are a little bit more intricate, so if y'all like this video, I'll post that too. All right, first of all, rimfire versus centerfire. The difference is the method of ignition, and I don't advocate 22 long rifle for defensive purposes, and I'll get back to that list. Okay, the difference in rimfire and centerfire, the reason it's called rimfire is because a firing pin hits the edge of this case on the rim, and it creates a spark inside of here, which ignites the powder and sends the bullet out. On a centerfire case like this 357, a primer hits the center of this, which is the primer, and that creates a spark in here, which ignites the powder and sends the bullet out. So center fire and then rim fire. That's the main difference right there. I say I don't advocate 22 long rifle for defensive purposes, but that could go for any rimfire round. 17 HMR is a rimfire round. 22 Magnum is also a rimfire round. All that rimfire means is the edge of this rim right here on this case is what causes the ignition. So I don't advocate for any rimfire round for defensive purposes because of these reasons. You have unreliable ignition. The case could be hard, and you could have firing pin issues. What I mean by that, unreliable ignition is just how these work. If you've ever bought a bulk pack of Federal or Remington or Winchester, you know what I'm talking about. You get probably a 90% success rate. Even though the defensive bullets in 22 may have a higher rate of ignition or a greater chance of going, there's still that risk of it not functioning. Since the rim and the way that it's detonated, I guess the material that they use in centerfire primers is contained in this rim, it has a greater chance for failure. That's just how it is. So when someone says, yeah, you can kill someone dead with a 22, well, I don't really care about the ballistics of this bullet. I care about how reliable it's going to be when I pull the trigger. They say the loudest sound that you hear is when you pull the trigger and you hear a click when you should hear a boom. And if I was in a defensive scenario and I had to rely on this little 22 or one similar to this one, and I hear that click, then obviously I'm giving up quite a few things to whoever it is that's causing me harm. I also have hard case edge and firing pin rigidity. Those kind of go together. People will always say to not dry fire a rimfire handgun or rifle, and the reason for that is because the firing pin isn't a straight dot. It's actually it looks kind of like a box, like a rectangle, because that whole rectangle hits the edge of this case and ignites it. So if you have a slightly damaged firing pin, rather than it just needing to come to a point, it needs to be flat for a long ways. You have a greater chance of that chipping, and you have a greater chance of that just not working. It's just not as reliable of ignition source. I just can't say that enough. That's just the way 22 is, especially if you're relying on bulk pack ammo to defend your life. I would never do that. So enough with rimfire. Move on. Centerfire defensive rounds, handguns. I have generally more weight equals deeper penetration, and by the same token, light and fast equals low penetration, but still effective. So for this one, as you can see where it kind of rolls over the edge here. This is a 158 grain 357 round, which is very heavy for a 357 round. For personal defense, I probably wouldn't suggest this because you get over penetration, you risk it coming out the back, and I'll touch on why that's bad later. But you risk that too. And then like this is my carry load. This is a 124 grain gold dot. And 9mm, that's kind of middle of the road. So you get good velocity still, and you get decent penetration and good energy transfer. Also on the back of this case, don't know if you can see it, but it says plus P. See it right there, plus P. All plus P means is the pressure is greater, plus pressure, added pressure. And there are SAMI requirements. I think it's SAAMMI or SAMMI. there's basically like a unit or a group of people, organization, whatever, that does ballistics testing, and they are the ones that decide what are, I guess, accepted pressures or normal pressures for certain rounds. So plus P just means it's above that. So before shooting any plus P ammo in your barrel and your gun, you need to make sure that your gun can take it. If you're shooting a Kel-Tec or a High Point, those might not be the best to shoot plus P ammo out of. So I also have, by the same token, light and fast equals low penetration and still effective. If you buy a 100 grain 9mm defensive round, and thing's going to be going really fast, but you might not get the penetration you want. And basically, when you're shooting to stop somebody, you want to poke the greatest hole you can to, I don't know, I guess maximize the pain and blood loss, really. As gross as it is, that's the point. So then I have hollow points with nickel cases here. They have sealed primers and bullets, meaning that around the edge of this, there's actually a very thin film. This one may not have it, but I know my gold dot does. You can't really see it, but it's a very light coating on the inside to prevent moisture from getting in there. And the same with the bullet. Right under the edge of the bullet and the case, there's a seal that prevents it from getting wet, prevents the powder from getting wet to prevent it from, not igniting. And let's see, hollow point design, more energy transfer, less penetration, and greater ability to incapacitate threat. The reason you use hollow points for defensive purposes is because here's a 200 grain XTP, that's a 45. The reason that you use these is because something like this is a 40 caliber 40 caliber target round. The reason you wouldn't use this is because this would pass directly through somebody. And somebody may tell you, well, isn't that what you want? In my opinion, what I want is I want this bullet to go inside the person. These petals open up when they hit flesh, by the way. You can see the little divisions there. It's like that on pretty much any of them. You can kind of see the little tiny divisions there. And the same thing with this critical defense. You can see those lines. When this bullet hits anything, really, not just flesh. If it hits a barrier or water or anything, these petals peel back. That's what it's designed to do. And what that does is it slows it down. So as it's opening up and slowing down, it's dumping all of that energy into whatever target it is that you're shooting at. When you fire one of these, if this was to hit anything really, even ballistics gel, if you watch ballistics gel tests, one of my favorite channels is Brass Fetcher. I really like his videos. If you want me to link it, I can link it in the description. But he does some tests with FMJ bullets, and you can see them pass straight through the entire block. And they don't dissipate that much energy. So all that leftover energy from that bullet moving after it goes through is waste energy. And the reason I have this as evil hollow point bullets is because these are seen as cop killers. They're bad. You shouldn't have them, blah, blah, blah. These serve a great purpose. By using less penetration, when that bullet leaves whatever it is your intended target is, that bullet is not traveling with as much velocity leaving, and it also will not risk other people around if it were to hit one of them. If it doesn't stop in whatever assailant or whatever you want to say perpetrator you're shooting at, when it hits them, it has the chance of staying in there and not going out the back. Whereas if you shot one of these, this has the chance of passing really through 2 or 3 different people depending on caliber. So hollow points serve a very specific purpose. There's just no question about it. The reason they tell you to use it for defensive purposes is not just because it makes a person more dead, because even though it will stop the threat quicker, it has the greater ability to incapacitate, it may cause blood loss faster. It also prevents harm to the people around. That's just a truth. Then I have here case and bullet cantilure. It's designed to prevent setback. It's on the edge of the bullet or edge of case. And for revolvers, it increases pressure. I'll discuss that now. So you can see it a little bit on the edge of this critical defense case. Let me see if I can get it to focus. You can see a tiny little rim on the inside in there. Just a tiny little, see those little ridges? What that's designed to do is when they crimp this case, meaning they take the neck of it and push it in like this, it pushes on that bullet really hard. So what that does is every time you rack a defensive round back in your gun after shooting target rounds, it prevents this bullet from setting back far. And even though bullet setback probably will still occur in reality, it'll happen a lot slower than it would with something like this. This Spirit Gold Dot round I have here is actually already starting to set back. I should probably fire that. I recommend that for anybody really. If you see your defensive bullet starting to set back, could create an unsafe pressure condition. So if it's still looking like this and not too far back, just go ahead and put it in your target rounds and get rid of it. So I also have for revolvers, it's designed to create a higher pressure. In one of these rifle rounds, you can see right here, it also has a candelore. And I'll get to that's actually like 2 or 3-fold when it comes to rifle rounds. This is just a Full Metal Jacket 223. Actually pretty hard to come by right now. This is probably worth a lot of money. But for revolvers, you can see at the bottom it has a case candelore because you can see the little edge there. And some rounds made by companies have that on their cases too. If you look at most Federal Hydra-Shoks, they have those little ridges from the edge of this bullet actually on the edge of this case. And what that does is tries to prevent that setback. For any semi-automatic round, that's the main purpose. For revolvers, what this is trying to do is hold that bullet tight so when this ignites, it doesn't push out the bullet as quickly. So it pushes out of the case slowly. And what that does is creates more time, I mean millionths of a second, 10 millionths of a second, a very short amount of time for this powder to build up more pressure. Because right when this bullet leaves here, it's coming out of the edges of that cylinder. So it wants to create and build up as much pressure as it can before this bullet gets on the rifling of the pistol. So that's the purpose for revolver rounds, to have candelore. You can see this one has it on the edge of the bullet and on the edge of the case. It's to keep this in here just a little bit longer to create more pressure in here. So that's pistol ammo right there. So Full Metal Jacket, like I was saying earlier, it's designed for target use. You have overpenetration. It is a greater risk to bystanders. People that stoke their defensive rounds chock full of target rounds because they don't feel like spending $20 on hollow points don't realize the risk they're posing to themselves and bystanders. The risk is you're not incapacitating a threat more quickly. So if you have family relying on you, then you won't incapacitate that threat quickly enough. Also, one of these Full Metal Jacket bullets, like I said earlier, will pass straight through somebody and still have enough energy carried out to take down another threat too. When you want to dump most of the energy into one person and not 5, you're not trying to spread that energy out from this bullet, you're trying to dump it all into one person. That's the reason people use hollow points. Hollow points are not evil cop killers. They serve a very specific purpose, and I have that listed right there. So, now to rifle ammunition. I have hunting ammunition. Every bullet has a specific purpose. And ballistic tip bullets really do get a bad rep from a lot of different people. They'll think that, it causes meat damage and stuff. And that says it does have the potential to cause meat damage. But the main thing it does is it increases stability. And so you can make more accurate shots. And actually, in some of these bullets, it's designed to hit flesh and push into. This plastic tip is meant to push into this bullet and cause it to peel open. This is a Barnes TTSX. It's called a tip triple shock. This is actually an all copper bullet, so it may not be the best indicator. But this bullet right here, when it hits flesh, this pushes into it and it peels back these little petals. Peels back these little pieces and it goes through. For hunting rounds, overpenetration isn't necessarily a bad thing. This one's loaded in a 260 Remington case. It's a 6.5 millimeter TTSX. And it's designed to go through one side and come through the other side and create a blood trail. So it's easier for hunters to track their game. So if you're shooting deer, whatever, this is a great whitetail round because it passes through, it dumps enough energy into their vitals to stop them. But if they run, then it leaves behind a blood trail as well. Other ballistic tip bullets work differently. I'll get down to this one. This is Hornady VMAX in a 223 case. I'll get down to that, but that is also ballistic tip. Ballistic tip usually just means it has a little plastic tip on the end. So, defensive ammo. For carbine in close quarters, I suggest fragmenting ammo. Some say it's less effective, but I say the risk of bullet failure is lower than the risk of overpenetration. Meaning, say you have these 2 rounds. This one designed for military use. This one designed for, I guess this is really more of a varmint round, which is a fragmenting round. If you're shooting in close quarters or in your home or anywhere and you shoot this at somebody, this will, even though it has some caveats, and I'll get to that, this will pass through a person more and create more of a risk by, chances of going through walls and stuff like that. The reason I suggest a varmint round like this one, a fragmenting round, is because this bullet is designed to penetrate about 3 or 4 inches, maybe 5. I forget exactly what the number is. But it's designed to penetrate just a few inches and then break apart. So every single bit of that, 3,000 plus feet per second coming out of this round into that bullet is getting dumped into the target. That's why when you see videos of like the Barnes varmint grenade shooting at varmints and they explode, that's what it's designed to do. It's designed to dump all that energy and to not leave anything behind. So the reason this is good for defensive use, like in the home or against people, if this bullet enters a chest cavity and it goes in there and goes off, I mean, you're creating a very, very hard wound, a greater chance to stop that person, and the chances of that bullet passing all the way through them are a lot lower than the risk of this one passing through them and going a lot farther and over penetrating. So the chances of this bullet failing to fragment are lower than this one over penetrating. That's why I put that. And also, now these are all my opinions, but I think there's a good bit enough tests done to where you can see that it actually does have some reasoning behind it. So then I have full metal jacket ammo. And I guess I'll just describe 5.56 military ammo because that's pretty much what that 223 one is over there, even though I loaded it myself. It's designed to tumble in flesh and split, and the bullet candelore aids this. And I also have target ammo because they almost the same thing, and then there's over penetration. So I'll explain how this military round is designed. You have the bullet candelore here, just like I was talking about earlier, those little ridges. And that purpose for military ammo is twofold. Number one, they can actually crimp the edge of this rifle case to push on that bullet. So if it gets rechambered a lot, the bullet won't set back into the rifle case. Because it's a lot worse for this bullet to set back than for one of these to set back. Because these you can usually still shoot. But if this sets back too much, it's going to go into the powder here and cause a lot of problems and probably not function. So that's number one, is you can use it for crimping. Number two, when this hits flesh, people say, oh, the bullet tumbles in the air. It doesn't tumble in the air. When this hits flesh, the rear end of this bullet weighs more than the front end of this bullet. So what happens is it hits flesh and it starts going end over end like this. And the candelore is actually the weak point on the bullet where it splits. So when they say tumbling round, that means bullet hits the target, goes end over end, candelore splits, and you have 2 or 3 different pieces, whatever. So it is pretty devastating. And I think personally, I've read a lot of stuff on this, but I think the reason that they designed that for the military is, to obviously create as big of a wound as possible, but I think the killing capacity of it might be less, because I think a wounded soldier is more of a liability to an enemy than a dead soldier is, because dead is dead, and wounded, then you're putting other soldiers at risk too. So I think that's the reason it was originally designed this way. I don't know. I know it's a really stable bullet. It's very accurate, but I think that's the original reason it was designed. But there may be another reason behind that. It is very effective at killing people, though. I mean, that's the truth. And then here I have target ammo and over penetration. So same thing with rifle rounds. Using this for defensive purposes. I mean, it's good for military, but I would not use this in your home if you have some sort of carbine as your home defense weapon. So I think that about covers all of it. I guess one thing I didn't cover that I just realized is people will talk about jacket separation. And the reason jacket separation is bad, like for this XTP, if this jacket separates from this lead core, that lead core is basically just a lead ball, and it has the potential to act as one of these. There's nothing slowing it down when it hits flesh. So the edges of it peel back, and then the lead piece comes out the middle, but this stays, well, you're not dumping as much energy in the target as you want to. That's why bonded bullets have become more common. Like this gold dot, they say that the molecules in the lead are semi-bonded to the molecules in the copper, so that it'll expand more evenly and you won't get jacket separation, because jacket separation isn't good. Same thing for this semi-jacketed hollow point here. You can see there's lead on the top. If this jacket comes off, it has a greater chance of over-penetrating. But for defense against bears or something with very thick skin, or hogs or whatever, these aren't necessarily a bad thing, because you want extra penetration to get through that armor. So each bullet has its own specific purpose, but I will say this is not some evil thing created by the devil. This has a very, very, very specific purposes, and it's very effective for defensive uses. So this is Big Apple signing out. If you have any questions, comment area, and I guess happy shooting.